Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cinema Flow podcast. I'm your host, Zach Abdulbaki, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. He is the Dean of the Film School at Chapman University, Dodge College of Film and Media Arts, my alma mater. Please welcome to the show, Dean Galloway.
Hi, hello, thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for welcoming us in your lovely office over here. And I thought for today's show, we could make this episode useful to all of the students who are graduating and are about to be applying for jobs, as well as all the recent graduates who are either looking for a job or looking for a better job. Does that sound good?
Yes, and critically important. And I will tell you that when I came in, one of my major goals was to set up a career center, which didn't exist. We now have 4 people in it, and occasionally a dog, and they've done amazing work. We still need more.
Absolutely.
And the tougher the landscape is, I've said to my boss, the more we need people to help, because we are entering a very tough labor landscape in the entertainment business, and it's not going to change for a few years.
Yeah, that's very true. And one aspect of a student's portfolio as they come out of film school is their thesis film.
Yes.
And I've gone to the thesis screenings. I try to go at least to 1 or 2 every year. And I was wondering, what are some of the common strengths and weaknesses you see in these films? Because some of them could be like Parker Finn's film, which led him to success with the Smile franchise. But I'm curious for you, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses you see, obviously without naming any films, but what do you think?
So, first of all, the quality sometimes astounds me because I went film school.
Yeah.
And I think I couldn't do this then. And sometimes that is humbling and intimidating. You think, oh my God, why wasn't I doing stuff like that? But that's very, very reassuring. Some are better than others. I don't think that's necessarily the way to judge them. And one thing you may know is that I've actually limited how much students can spend on these films. Because what I've said is these are learning exercises. And it may be that all your ducks align and they work out, or it may be that one doesn't and it goes wrong. And that is part of the process. The goal here isn't to make a perfect film. If you get there, great. The goal is to learn and to learn a series of skills, and above all, to learn to think deeper, better, more critically, more imaginatively. That's the most important tool. Frankly, if you're studying philosophy or history or business, if we can teach you to think, you'll be prepared for a world that's going to be in complete flux for many, many decades.
Absolutely, yeah. It is more about the journey rather than the destination. Although I would say, I remember Mickey Desdovich works here. He has a lot of experience with film festivals, and he said the most important thing with a short film is the story and the performances. Would you agree with that? Because, with the thesis films, the cinematography is always astounding.
Yes.
But I think the ones that are more powerful than others are probably because of the story.
And I'm glad you didn't let me off the hook,
Yeah, exactly.
but you circled back.
Yeah.
Technically, these films are often unbelievable.
Yes.
It's hard for scripts to reach the same level because young people haven't had that experience of the world. And that teaches you about relationships, about people. It's very hard to write and really have a career as a writer until you're in your 30s because you haven't had that experience. So we are changing the process by which scripts are selected and developed. This is a constant process that we're improving so that the scripts are all equal to technique. Right now, some of them are. We've also brought in Russell Boast. Russell was the former president of the Casting Society of America to help bring in casting directors to help get really top-notch acting. And we can still improve in both those areas and must. We literally had a meeting about this yesterday where I said, should we fund casting directors for each film? Because it's so important. Should we have a more competitive approach to choosing the scripts? But I don't want us to be like some other film schools where there's a cutthroat atmosphere. So how you do that is very difficult. And yet some of them, I watched a film last week, it's called The Pack, and very simple. It's a few students, frat boys gathering, dealing with the fact that one of them has been killed in the hazing.
Oh, wow. And
it's all in one place. The script, the cinematography, the sound, the acting were absolutely astonishing. So it can be done. And by the way, sometimes the same talent just goes wrong. And that's life. It happens professionally too.
Absolutely. And I agree with what you said about the life experience, that younger people don't have as much of. I mean, I was a screenwriting major, and one lesson I learned is you should do 33% your own personal experience, 33% other people's experience, like your friends or family, and then 33% imagination.
Well, imagination matters.
Yeah.
And if you have a great idea, it's going to carry. I spent several years as a script reader.
Yeah.
I read some astonishing pieces of writing and had to say no because the idea itself wasn't compelling. And someone's going to have to sell it based on the idea. If I give you a film called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, that's a comedy. You don't need to know anything else. You go, I want to see that.
Yeah.
That's just the idea.
Yeah. One common trait I do see amongst the thesis films, or honestly, most short films I see made in film school, is they're very product oriented. And, that's a business term for like, Apple, for example. Steve Jobs did not care about what you wanted with the product. He wanted to make the thing he wanted. And if you like it, that's great. If not, whatever. Versus Hollywood is mostly market oriented films, responding to what people want. What is your opinion on, the age-old debate of art versus commerce? Should students be trying to make horror films, for example, because that's going to lead them to what the market wants, developing skills in that genre, or should they really just stick to what they want to make artistically?
Well, first of all, we are a film school.
Yeah.
We're not a business. So I think students should make absolutely what they want to make. But they also have to understand that the industry is script driven. And so if the idea isn't viable, then you're really stuck. If the idea isn't original, you're going to have a problem. So it's a very fine balance. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about that. But I think in film school, you can do the art you want, but you also have to learn about the industry. But at this stage, we're not telling you, you must do this. We are, however, shifting more towards a script-centric film school, because if the script doesn't work, you're dead in the water.
Yeah.
If the script isn't interesting, you may make it brilliantly, but you're still stuck. So we're at the tail end, I think, of a period based on, if you know the term, the auteur theory.
Yeah.
And the auteur theory was spawned in the late 50s and 60s by a brilliant group of French critics who became directors. Jean-Luc Godard, Francois Truffaut, they're the best known. And the idea was very simple. It's that a great director puts his stamp on a film. It was the opposite of the studio system in Hollywood, where you're a cog in the system. So there are two problems with this. The first problem was this was misinterpreted. And the misinterpretation was that every director should also be a writer. Most great directors work with great writers. Hitchcock, Renoir, John Ford, Spielberg, absolutely. So they understand you can still put your stamp on working with a writer. So we're trying to reorient so people value and respect scripts. So that's the first problem. The second issue is actually the golden age of Hollywood, which is an era of expertise. I'm writing a book about Hollywood in 1939, which is the pinnacle of the golden age. And the thing that's astonished me is that the giants who worked within that system still did it their way, still rebelled, still put their stamp on things, even when they weren't the writers.
Yeah.
And by the way, I worked in Paris in the 1980s, and I saw the effects of that theory. I was a script reader there. I read maybe 300 scripts in a year. Guess how many were good? And by good, I mean professional, appealing, had a potential audience out of 300.
I'd say about like 3%, maybe 10 out of 300.
Very good guess. One.
One.
What? Not even percent.
Yeah.
One.
One.
I thought this is astonishing because they had killed the tradition, which was very strong in France, of the writer.
Well, I talked to a lot of students about what do you want me to ask Dean Galloway?
Yeah.
I think a common grievance I've seen amongst former screenwriting majors, now the majors writing for film and television, was that they left school without one of their films being made. Now, personally, I am sympathetic to the idea of a directing major wanting to write his own script or work with a writer on his own story as an auteur. So do you think, has the program changed in a way where now they're required to work with screenwriting majors? And how do you feel about the subject?
Yes, the program's changed. I feel that the screenwriters should have their films made.
Yeah.
I also feel we shouldn't be dictating somebody. So there's now a process where at various points directors must work with writers. If they want to write a thesis film, they must have gone into a class. And ultimately, there's a selection process based on script. So if you're a director and you've written a script that gets into the top 25 whatever, great, you direct. If not, you take another script. If you're a writer, you're in the same pool. So the reality is it's hard to find even 25 to 30 great scripts. But this creates a level playing field where the writers can submit scripts, the directors can submit scripts, a very neutral committee chooses them, and each person on that committee has the right to really go to bat for something. So I think it's as fair as can be. We've also done everything now to integrate screenwriters and animation, so screenwriting students can work on animation films, and we're doing everything to encourage writers and directors to work together. Because one of the best things you can come away from film school with is a partnership.
Yeah. And another thing some of the writing alumni told me, and even some current students told me, that they wish that they were forced to take production classes, that it was integrated within the major. I mean, my feeling was, if it's not required, that's okay, just go and try to take those classes. But do you think that they should be required to take?
First of all, they can work on as many productions as they want.
True.
Where you'll learn. We do more production than any other film school. So we're always trying to get students to work on films. The problem here is we could make each program 10 years and get you to do everything. Remember, for undergrad, half basically is general education.
Yes.
So now you get the problem of what do we eliminate? No one's going to get everything they want. I don't get everything I want. I would like you all to do much more film and television history. We can't squeeze it in.
Yeah.
So there's a constant back and forth on what's the right mix.
Yes. Well, back to getting to the job market. I mean, I went to this alumni and entertainment event recently, and they asked everybody, what are you optimistic about regarding the film industry right now? I want to tell you what I'm optimistic about, and then I want to hear what you are.
Was that one of our alumni events?
Yes.
Yes, good, because we've really stepped those up.
Yes.
And we're putting quite a lot of money into doing very regular alumni mixes.
Yeah, they're all very good. And one thing I'm optimistic about is if you look at the few years after COVID, like 2021 and 2022, the landscape of movies in theaters was very uncertain. If you made a list of your 10 favorite films in 2021 and 2022, I guarantee you half of them didn't make their money back in the box office. However, the reason I'm optimistic is because in the last couple of years, we've kind of reached a new normal where you can sort of predict what the market value of a movie is going to be before it comes out. You know, because the golden rule of production financing, the market value has to be higher than the budget. I learned that here. And
well, a lot higher, because
a lot higher, absolutely, a lot higher. And I think if a filmmaker, a young filmmaker, wants to make films that are personal, artistic, and original, and have them succeed in movie theaters, all signs point towards horror. So that's one thing I'm optimistic about, is that there's at least one genre where it still works. That's why I think film students should try to, find a way to love horror and see if they can be good at it. I'm curious on your thoughts on that, and also just what you're optimistic about right now in the film industry.
I do take the long view on these things.
Yeah.
1927 was a pivotal year in film.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's almost exactly 100 years ago.
Absolutely.
Because, as you know,
jazz singer,
sound came in. Yeah. People were terrified. The entire industry changed. Actors with squeaky voices disappeared.
You ever seen The Artist?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Exactly.
So, but there was also an influx of talent, and the industry grew.
Yeah.
So now come to the invention of television. Oh my God, this is our enemy. And then the feature film business for us, oh no, this is another market for us. Cable, the internet, we've dealt with constant change. The truth is, if you look at the numbers, the entire entertainment and media business globally is growing. It's shrinking in LA. And that's terrible. And that's going to affect our students. So you're looking at one tiny slice, which is the feature film business, which has rebounded from COVID. Not quite to the same levels, but enough to make us optimistic.
Yeah.
But production has fled Los Angeles, probably isn't going to come back
It's getting a little better this year so
because
far.
the government put in a lot
Yes.
of money, but I don't think it's going to make a radical change.
Yes, it's been better with TV. Film has a way to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
But remember, and the other problem is all these streamers, they're in an arms race. It's over. They're all cutting back. But still, this is a gigantic industry compared to what it was 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Much bigger. So
What makes you hopeful then?
it makes me realize that people are looking at, oh my gosh, there are not the jobs there were 5 years ago. There are a lot more than there were 15 years ago. So we should focus on that. There's so much being made.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of years ago, there were 599 scripted series made. When I was growing up, there was prime time on 3 networks, and at 10 o'clock it ended, and you went to bed. So there is a growth, but it's a global growth, and it's not just Hollywood. And Hollywood is retrenching. So what's that mean? One thing that we're really looking at in changing our entire curriculum is to start to teach our students to think entrepreneurially.
Right.
Because you have great skills, and there is a need for those in businesses, corporations, legal firms, marketing companies, social media firms, which makes them very valuable while you're waiting to get the feature film off the ground or whatever.
Yeah.
So that addresses my optimism.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you look at the recent filmmakers who are debuting and making a splash, that what you talk about when you said that people need to be entrepreneurial, I agree. I think Hollywood doesn't seem to be interested in developing and cultivating new talent the way that there used to be big writers' rooms with 25 episodes a season, and you take them on set and teach them how to direct. They seem to want you to make yourself a hot commodity. You have to be in the business of Steven, be in the business of Zach, and make yourself something valuable or have something to contribute that's valuable to these studios, and then they'll.
But now there are the avenues to do that. They didn't exist before. You know, YouTube, the internet, verticals.
Yeah.
They weren't around.
Well, let me ask you this, because I'm someone who's had a lot more success independently than within institutions. Not by choice. I would love to be part of an institution. What do you think are the pros and cons of working within an institution versus being independent and entrepreneurial?
I also want to answer the second part of your question, which is about horror.
Oh,
yes, horror is in. These things go through cycles. The rom-com was in, the hero's journey was in. How many, Avengers movies have we seen? This goes up and down. But if you look at an audience, there's often a market. I mean, let's look at Moonlight. Moonlight is not a horror film. It's a very unusual film about a young queer boy learning to adapt to the world. But they knew there was a market for that if you make it for 1.2 million.
Well, that was 10 years ago. I think today, when it comes to the Oscar type films, in order to really make money, I think you need to be in Best Picture. Whereas a horror film, it can be good, it can be bad, it can be in the middle. It'll make more money if it's good, like Obsession. But even Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey made a lot of film money. That has 3% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yes.
But I think a film like that can still find an audience.
Absolutely.
You may have to market it in an unusual way. And remember, Moonlight, even though it won the Oscar, didn't make that much money after winning the Oscar.
It did well in theaters. It definitely made its money back. I mean, with the
It
made
made
marketing,
its money back, but it wasn't a big hit.
Yeah, I mean, it's not La La Land, or anything. But for that type of film, it was very successful. And I think when you say about marketing, that's the awards campaign. I think that's if someone really wants to stick to drama, you have to have the goods. You have to be in Best Picture.
You have to know how to market it.
And know how to market it and have that funding behind you. But what are pros and cons of being independent?
So going back to what you're saying, first of all, we all want safety. We all want to be nurtured. We all want somebody to give us things on a plate.
Yeah.
Every single thing I've done, I wanted someone else to do it for me and make it a hit. Every big thing I've done, don't think I go into it thinking, I'm going to do this. I go in trembling with fear, worrying about potential failure. I always wish somebody would discover me. These things are unlikely to happen. When they do, you get everything goes with it. You get nurturing, experience, a system that you can understand. All that's great. You're not going to get that necessarily on your own. On the other hand, you're also entering a system that has been shaped by other people and other generations and that tends to move slowly and doesn't allow for that kind of opportunity, isn't really open to it. So I think both are important and valid. If you can get one of those legacy institution jobs, CAA or being a page at NBC Universal, great. You're going to learn a massive amount, but you can learn a lot by having to force and adapt and think creatively. And I think the hard thing about that is that works for some people, doesn't work for everybody. If you're a cinematographer or a sound, entrepreneurialism may not be in your nature, but if you can coalesce with the Zacks and others and bring your skills together, then you can use that extremely well.
Absolutely. And
do you agree?
I agree, and I'll give you a little story that will, sort of respond to that. I interned for a talent management company, and I love this company, and they've been very good to me. I interned for them, and later applied for a job, and they said no, and I said, why? And they said, because you told us you want to be a director. We want people who want to be managers. Now, the reason I won't say their name is because they're very good to me. Like, they've helped me with
And by the way,
things.
what's wrong with them telling you that?
Nothing. But I think for the people who want to have that traditional path, most entry-level jobs, and entry-level, they're not really entry-level because they say you need 2 to 3 years experience on a desk. And how else are you going to get that unless you intern somewhere for free and then they like you and then they hire you? So, and also you can't do unpaid internships after you graduate. So I think the system is broken. However, I agree with what you said before, because I think one thing they've told me, or someone at that company has told me, is if you really want to be a director, you don't want to be within these institutions.
No, absolutely.
Because then you will become a manager or an agent or something, which there's nothing wrong with that. Great career. And managers can produce as well. But it kind of forces you to make the creative thing work. Yeah.
If you want to be a cinematographer, do you want to go and be working on a desk at WME?
Well,
No.
those definitely, cinematographers have their own freelance route, same with editors. But if you're a writer or a director or producer, you probably...
It's the hardest for writers.
Yes, I think
because
so.
they want to be in a writer's room, and the first step that is one of those agency jobs.
Yes.
And that's unfortunate.
And
Really unfortunate.
I think writers are the most... It's first off the hardest job to get and the most underappreciated.
No question.
Yeah.
On the other hand, everything starts with the material. Exactly. Because if you're a producer, if you're inside that fortress of an agency, whatever, you're always looking for material. It starts with material. And by the way, I mentioned the student who's working with, the director of Obsession.
Yeah.
He's worked on multiple films with the producers because they thought he did a great job. So actually, you want to network a lot. You want to work on a lot of things because you get recommended.
Well, let me ask you this. What are the do's and don'ts of networking, according to you? What do you think are the ways
Well,
to do
there's
it
the
effectively?
networking through doing a job.
Yeah.
And then it's really simple. You do the job well, you have a good attitude. And, I used to speak to interns when I was at the Hollywood Reporter, and I would say, which one's more important? Your attitude or your brilliance? Yeah. And they'd hesitate. I'm not hiring you for brilliance. I'm hiring you to make me a cup of coffee, I remember once walking past, my friend and then boss, Matt Bellany.
One of the greatest interviewers today.
He's terrific. And Matt had been a litigator. Yeah. He can be very tough. Matt was extraordinarily nice when it came to people like assistants. And I remember as he's coming into his office from something, and he said to this group of assistants, anybody going out to buy a sandwich or anything? Oh no, we've had our lunch. Are you kidding me? Are you out of your minds? And he didn't do anything. Yeah. Well, that's how you do it. So there's the networking within a job where when people see you doing a good job, they're going to promote you. I've done it internally. We just had an assistant who's actually one of our alumni. We brought her up here. She did a good job. We needed somebody in admissions that paid quite a bit more. Give her the job. She's great. So doing the job is terrific. But then you want to create a network, and you have to do it pretty systematically. Get together with friends, go and have coffee, come up with ideas, volunteer to work on things. And that's how you build a reputation. Reputation isn't based on, I like this person. Yeah. It's based on this person works really hard and does a great job. And You need to access enough people so that you're getting more than just one phone call every 6 months.
Absolutely. And I think it takes a lot of patience, and also you never know what will lead to what.
And yes, you don't know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, look, it's like dating on the internet or whatever. You have to, kiss 100 unpleasant fish.
Exactly.
And then something happens. I remember years ago interviewing Julianne Moore.
Oh, wow.
And she just got married, and we talked about it. How did you meet your husband? And she said, I talked to my therapist.
Yeah.
And he said, which one's more important, your work or your love life? She said, well, they're both equally important. Yeah. How much time do you give to your work? Maybe 95%? How much time to your love life? Well, you have to put the work in with networking.
Yeah.
You have to go to events, you have to volunteer, and out of the blue, something happens and you never know what. And we're not on the same timeline.
Yeah.
Do you know how I got this job?
No, I knew you were at the Hollywood Reporter,
Right.
and then around COVID.
It's unlikely that someone who's a journalist is going to be named the dean of... I created a mentorship program for girls in South Central LA.
I've heard about this, yeah.
And then out of that, I got approached by Loyola Marymount, became a visiting artist, started to get involved in education. And then weirdly, 2 separate people said, this guy is okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it. I'd applied for a different job that I thought I should get, and I didn't.
Yeah.
So yes, you have to do a lot of that, and it's slow at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you have to think, again, entrepreneurially, or align yourself with people. 2 cases. We have 3. I just spoke to a professor the other day. One of his students started making AI commercials. I know everybody hates AI.
Yeah.
One of the big brands found him. Said, we'll pay you to do this.
Yeah.
So he gets $5,000 a commercial. He's making thousands each month.
Yeah.
And he's still a student. Second example, one of our alumni knows horses. She started making films about thoroughbred horses and reached out to thoroughbred horse owners.
Yeah.
And now she's making a lot filming their horses. You do those things while waiting for the feature to get off the ground, the TV pilot. The Duffer Brothers spent years before they got Stranger Things. So, third example I was going to give you, I got a call from an antique car collector.
Yeah.
I want films made about each car. So I put together a group of students and alumni. I actually contacted one student. He contacted one of his friends who's one of our alumni. And now they're doing that. So you can use these skills and coalesce to create opportunity at a time when there's less of it in the industry.
Absolutely. You got to be scrappy. You got to think outside the box. I want to tell you a story from one of my old internships. This one I can mention.
Okay.
Thunder Road Films, one of the greatest production companies out there today. Basil Iwanek, Erica Lee, they produced John Wick films. And
Basil was an executive for many years at
Absolutely.
Warner Brothers, I think.
Yeah, and then when he left to start this company, he was trying to make John Wick. And there was a gap in the financing, and he broke the golden rule of financing, which
Put
is
in your own money.
exactly. And he said that, it is good to be educated and inform yourself about the statistics of the industry, the box office, etc. But he said there is such a thing as knowing too much, because if you know truly the statistics of how most movies don't make money, you will never have the optimism to take the risk that he did with John Wick. I was wondering if you give me your thoughts on that, because I think it's
Well,
true.
I can give them to you from personal experience. Because, when I left film school, I really knew the industry.
Yeah.
I started writing about it, and I knew film history very well. It paralyzed me, because every time I wanted to write something, I was aware, well, this has been done before, this isn't original. And every time I wanted to write something that was original, I thought, oh my God, no one's making these films. And so there is a form of knowing too much that can inhibit you, but generally knowledge is good.
Yes, I agree. How do you avoid being discouraged? I mean, at least when you were coming up, maybe. That'd be
It was impossible. You get discouraged because you only get over that when you've had some success.
Yeah.
And what I've tried to say to people is, I said from day one here, failure is okay. And I fail over and over again. I try to do things, I fail. I do something, I could have done it better. But I've had enough success in some areas that I realize that's part of it. If our master classes,
Yes.
do you know how many people we reach out to land?
I know, because I do a podcast. I know I reach out to every director for every movie.
But you put in the work to do it. You put in campaign for each one. You know, when I was at the Hollywood Reporter and I created the roundtables.
Yes, the close-up.
Well, when they're the very first ones, people don't want to do those. Why would they? Who's doing them? So that is part of the journey. And if you can accept and not take it too personally, sure, you should learn from your mistakes. But I would say to all our students, if there's someone in class, go up, speak to them, say, can I have a coffee with you? And let's say 4 out of 5 say no. You can look at that 2 ways. Oh my God, 4 people hate me. They despise me. I did the wrong thing. Or you can say, I landed one. I got my fish.
Yeah. You have to be a little shameless in this industry.
Which not everybody is,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, what's the worst they're going to say? No? I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
Like,
And usually it's the really nice people who are afraid.
I'm going to follow up on a couple of those things after, but one thing I want to tell you is the number one thing that surprised me when I came to film school in freshman year, which is that most students don't really watch many movies in theaters.
You're breaking my heart.
It boggles my mind. Do you think they should be watching more movies in theaters so they can see what's doing well, or is it irrelevant? Should they just, watch whatever they want to watch
How
at
many
home?
syllables can I add to make the word yes this long? You know?
Right.
And the problem is, if you're dealing with the high end in the industry, they know this stuff.
Yes.
You know, we had David Heyman here.
Oh, he's a great producer.
He's one of the greats.
Harry Potter,
Extraordinary.
Gravity, Barbie.
And you know what we're talking about? We're talking about Dostoevsky.
Oh, wow.
Now, you go to work for him as an assistant,
Yeah.
and he expects that knowledge. You go to work for Amy Pascal, who's producing the new James Bond films with him. And if you don't know classic films in television, you're dead.
Yeah.
So you can meet the hustlers who might be great at the beginning of your career. But later on, it's going to be an enormous asset if I did an interview with Rita Moreno, who was the star of West Side Story last week. Well, I know her films. And so it instantly gives you a certain credibility and respect. If you're entering the industry and you don't know that, it's like me going to the sports world. I don't know. Shohei who? I don't know that world. They know, they can tell.
Yeah.
That means you don't demonstrate a passion, and it's not useful. Because my first job was for a director, extraordinary director named Martin Ritt, R-I-T-T. He directed Norma Ray, The Spy Came from the Cold, HUD. I got the job because I knew his films. But I remember I was reading scripts for him. He gave me a script. He wanted to do it. And it was a remake of a German film called The Lost Honor of Katharina Blum. And he said, is it good? I said, it's very good. There's no point in him doing a remake. He didn't need to go and watch the film.
Yeah.
It was one sentence. He knew he could trust me. That's why he hired me. He had extraordinary class. So if your target, if your goal is to enter that, you sit with Spielberg. You don't think he knows every film ever made?
Absolutely.
And watches them all the time?
I think the biggest movie nerd on the planet is Quentin Tarantino.
Yes, to an unimagined level. I mean, I've done roundtables where Noah Baumbach and Spielberg are discussing individual shots from films, way beyond my knowledge. So this is going to help you. So also, if you're making films, a shortcut. You say, I want this opening to be the opening shot of Touch of Evil. This helps you enormously. I want to have the look of Caravaggio. This is also shorthand.
Yeah.
But if you're going in, and I was trying to get one of our students an internship with David Heyman in London, and actually it was too late, but David was communicating. And I said, if you don't know this and you're working with him, he's not going to say anything.
Yeah.
He'll be friendly, but you're not ever going to reach that next level. You won't even know it.
Yeah.
You will not know it.
Absolutely. I mean, some of my best professors are big movie nerds. I want to ask you. Some of them, I like Tim O'Hare is one of my favorite professors. Scott Feinberg, obviously. I want to ask you, what do you think makes a great professor?
Oh, wow. So this is a very interesting point because, as you may know, there's grade inflation. And one of the great problems in education is people getting more and more A's, and they expect an A if they've done the work. This is a huge problem for us because I feel that part of education is like working out. I go and work out with the trainer. He loads me up with weights. I scream that I can't do it, and the muscle gets bigger. A brain has to be pushed and stretched. I worked for a brilliant editor at the Hollywood Reporter, Janice Min, who's famous. I can't tell you, if you have a story, the number of times she would write in the margin, ugh. It was fake. We would laugh, but cry. But when she wrote love it, and it pushed you to a different level. So a great professor, not a good one, also pushes you to a level you maybe didn't think you could reach. Now, what do you need to do that? You need passion and enthusiasm. You need the ability to project belief. If I believe you can do it, even when you can't believe it yourself, you need an extraordinary commitment to humanity. But you also need rigor.
Yeah.
And I've sat with professors and said, you're giving all A's. You know, Harvard has just instituted a policy where they're only giving 30% A's. Wow, that's draconian.
Yeah.
But there's a reason. You know, when I was in high school in England, if you got an A, you would really be thrilled. So I do feel that an element of rigor is involved. Tell me what you think makes a great professor.
I think creatively, what makes a great professor is someone who says, okay, this is the type of film that Steven wants to make. I'm going to help you make the best Steven movie you possibly can.
Yes, you're talking about one aspect of education.
One aspect of
which is production. I agree. Yeah. And the danger, this is the same in editing, and I've been an editor, obviously, is you trying to get that writer to make what you want to write.
Yeah.
I remember reading a story by a friend of mine. It was a profile of, I think it was Hans Zimmer.
Oh, wow.
And I edited and changed it around. Yeah. And I woke up the following day and thought, all I've done is make his story my story. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
It's helping that person and in life find who they want to be, what they want to do, as opposed to this is how it's done.
I want to ask you one thing. What is the hiring process like for professors, and how much do you guys care about credits? And also, if they've never taught before, how do you test them? Do they teach you?
Oh, you ask great questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent questions. There is a formal hiring process. A search committee is created, usually 3 people on the faculty. They advertise the job, they discuss the wording of the job, and then people apply. Those 3 go through all the applicants and decide which ones they want to interview. They interview them, and then they bring in 3, sometimes 4, to teach a class and do a presentation. And then we all sit and discuss, and ultimately I choose one.
Yeah.
That choice is usually in sync. I can't arbitrarily say, we're going to go this one, and I disagree with all of you. So we've always had a conversation that has reached an agreement. This is part of a system you've probably never heard of in universities called shared governance. And it's very hard for somebody who comes from outside universities, like I do, to adapt to that. Because the professional world is hierarchical. And you may get input, but ultimately you decide and you have to figure out how to execute something. In the late 40s, there was a gathering of universities at a conference where it was agreed that faculty and administration would have equal rights. So at every point, administration, that's the president, that's the deans, we have to bring in the faculty, we have to respect them. It can make change very difficult and slow, but it also brings in thoughtful and intelligent people to the process. So there are good and bad things about it, but the process is not just hire a search firm, choose finalists, I'll meet them, here you go guys, you're getting this person.
Yeah.
So that's the process. How much does each matter? The most important thing for me, this is for me, is how well do you teach? It is the sine qua non. I don't want people who don't teach well. I don't want people who don't care for the students. I don't want people who are completely committed.
Even if they have the big credits.
No.
Yeah.
Now, and I've been in that situation of choosing. We had one of the top producers of films that I love who just came in. And I thought, my God, this is our future producing faculty. And he did a class with the students. This was before there was a job. He did a presentation. People were dying of boredom. Dying. And I thought, can't bring him in.
Yeah.
So first and foremost job, unlike many universities which are there to support faculty in research, in scholarship, I regard my top priority as the teaching of the students. But we also need the people who have the credibility of coming from industry and of experience at a very high level. So I can't ignore those things.
Yeah.
For instance, we just lost one of my favorite professors, Barry Blaustein. Barry had extraordinary credits. And when he died, I didn't even realize how famous he was in the business. You know, the Los Angeles Times, the Hollywood Reporter did massive pieces. People reaching out from all sorts of worlds. What he did on Saturday Night Live was pivotal. Now I've lost somebody who was a terrific teacher and had great credits. I need some people with credits. I need it to give credibility. I need it to link our students with the industry. But I wouldn't bring somebody in who can't also teach.
Well, what about for you? Who was the best teacher you ever had?
I actually had an industry mentor when I was growing up who was just incredible. And her name was June Wyndham Davis.
Yeah.
And she was a director. And I absolutely loved and adored her. And I dedicated my last book to her.
Yeah.
And she used to tell me stories about when she was young, running a repertory theatre in this British coastal town called Folkestone.
Yeah.
And this not very good actor who came in and he's trying to pretend he's drunk and it's way over the top. And she's kind of giving a bit of guidance. And his name was Michael Caine.
Oh, wow.
And years later, I interviewed him. And I thought, I have a halo around this mentor of mine, June. But was she that? And decades later, I interviewed him for a master class that I did on Netflix, a TV show called The Hollywood Masters.
Yeah, with was that an LMU?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched those. I watched the Judd Apatow one. That was one of my favorites. Yeah.
And I said to Michael Caine, you know, I used to be friends with June Wyndham Davis. His reaction, it was as if I'd said I was friends with Mahatma Gandhi. And it was so wonderful to me to know that he revered her as much as I did.
Yeah.
So she was terrific. I will say within Dodge, Michael Kowalski
Right.
has taught me more than anything than
I teach
anyone.
sound design.
Yep. But he's also the senior associate dean. I would say we run the place together.
Yeah.
Because our skills are completely complementary. What he's good at, I'm not, and vice versa. But when I came in from the outside world, which is a hard transition because universities are a different ecosystem with shared governance, with processes. He had great patience and taught me everything. I didn't know what tenure meant.
Yeah.
What's a unit? What's a prereq? Did not know. And he would guide me and still does. There isn't a single major decision I make without consulting him.
Yeah.
And when he disagrees, I would say 95% of the time he's right and I'm wrong. I can think of 2 examples in 6 years where I still think I was right.
Yeah.
But 98, he was.
Yeah.
So he would laugh if I said he's my mentor. I call him my guru, you know.
Guru.
But we have wonderful professors, extraordinary professors.
Who is on your Mount Rushmore of the 4 best interviewers working today? And I can tell you mine as well.
Okay, so I'm going to exclude the people I know personally.
Yes. So for you, no Scott Feinberg, no Matt Bellany.
No Kim Masters, no Stephen Galloway. No, this would be unfair and all my friends will come after me. But I once wrote a list of the best film books and all my friends that I didn't include were out to kill me. I'll give you 2 that I think are extraordinary interviewers.
Yeah.
Tell me if you agree. One is on the radio, Terry Gross, Fresh Air. Shocked at her brilliance and her ability to follow, listen, structure it, but follow. You know who the other one is? Howard Stern.
Interesting.
He's a brilliant interviewer. And I remember years ago doing a big profile of Hugh Hefner, found at Playboy. And Howard Stern had done an interview with one of his exes. And just with humor and teasing, he pops the balloon and relaxes her. And then they're talking.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you ever want to listen to a great interview, Terry Gross's interview of Howard Stern is magnificent. 2 parts.
That's very cool. I like both of them. They wouldn't be on my Mount Rushmore.
Give me yours.
Okay, so I would say the most influential on me would be Perry Nemiroff.
Okay, why?
Yeah, I think the way that she gets the subject to talk about their craft passionately exceeds most other people.
Wow, okay, who else?
And I would say Matt Bellany for the business side of the industry.
Yes, he's terrific because he's tough.
He's very tough.
He's not intimidated.
Yes, and he makes the episode useful for the listener.
Because I will say he was the most brilliant
Yeah.
journalist I worked with in 27 years at the Hollywood Reporter.
Absolutely. And his newsletter is amazing.
Yeah. And Janice Min, the editor, who's extraordinary. but I knew immediately he had a gift.
Yeah.
You know,
I'll say Matt Bellany's on the Mount Rushmore, as well as Scott Feinberg. I think he's the best at getting to know the person. Like by the end of an awards chatter podcast, I feel like I've gotten to know this person.
Well, he does the best research.
Yes.
He does extraordinary research. So he knows obscure details, which again wins over the person. You know that about me? How did you find that out?
Absolutely. And he taught me, so I learned a lot from him. And fourth on the Mount Rushmore, I'd say Kevin McCarthy. He has a podcast called On Film.
Okay.
And he does a lot of the Q&As
Really?
at the AMCs around LA. And he really delves into the technical side of
Interesting.
filmmaking, the craft, the cinematography, things like that. I would say these four each have something different about them that puts them in my Mount Rushmore.
Well, they're all in the entertainment universe.
That's true. Yes, entertainment journalists.
Right, which is a different thing. I was looking at the broader sort of who I want to listen to. And by the way, I actually hate listening to entertainment interviews for two reasons. First of all, it's my bread and butter.
You've done it.
And I've done it. And then it drives me nuts when they don't follow something and go down that path. They're giving you gold, you know, so I get very frustrated.
I want to get into your books. I just want to shout out, you have two books right here. Leading Lady, Sherry Lansing, and the Making of a Hollywood Groundbreaker. I want to ask you, because you've talked about this book in previous interviews, but who do you think is the best studio executive working today?
Success is a result of great decisions.
Yeah.
So you have to give Ted Sarandos his due.
Yeah.
That he's built that company against all odds and delivered remarkable results. So, and whenever I dealt with him, he's been great. When he came down here, he was terrific. So I think what he's done is remarkable. I do think there are pioneers, and that's a different thing. So he and Reed Hastings really were pioneers in creating. They created streaming.
Yes.
But one who died was extraordinary, and I was lucky enough to have done a long profile of him, Ted Turner.
Right.
And, you know, he created CNN when there was no concept of 24-hour news. He built a global organization. One of my favorite stories about him was that he entered into a bidding war for the Hanna-Barbera cartoon collection. I think he got 300 million or something like that. Disney was bidding against him. Disney pulled out, and Michael Eisner, who had been a pretty remarkable head of Disney, said, he's out of his mind, it's not worth this. And then Turner took it and created the Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
And Eisner said, oh my God, why didn't I do that? So Turner had an extraordinary originality, which, to be frank, most executives don't have.
Yeah.
Barry Diller, obviously, was one of them. But it's harder and harder today because all these companies are divisions of much bigger ones.
Yeah, I mean,
one of the great film companies you probably haven't heard of was the Ladd Company, run by Alan Ladd Jr., Jay Cantor, and Gareth Wigan. The three of them were the executives at 20th Century Fox who greenlit Star Wars. Yeah. A legendary story, a legendary trio. And then they got kicked out. They had a fight with the very buttoned-down CEO who ran the company. And they created their own company, the Ladd Company. And my very first trip to Los Angeles, when I was a student in England in 1980, I got a meeting with one of them. And I was a shivering, nervous wreck.
Yeah.
And I go to their offices. They had offices in Warner Brothers that had belonged to Owen Allen, who had made all those disaster films. They were the most beautiful offices in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they made one film after another with the most wonderful decisions. They made Fred Zinnemann's last film. Fred Zinnemann was a great director. They made a film which was a complete flop called Blade Runner. One after the other, and they all failed.
Right.
And then as the company was closing, they greenlit some silly little comedy called Police Academy that made $1 billion and 11 sequels. And I thought, this is the film business. All their decisions were remarkable decisions. Box office didn't reflect that. You're doing a very good interview.
Thank you. Who is your dream Chapman guest that you haven't gotten yet? Whose publicist should Scott Feinberg be emailing right now? I think David Fincher or Tarantino would be good, but who do you think?
Spielberg.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. What is your favorite cinema in the world?
You mean movie theater?
Yes.
Oh, that's such a great question. I like the Academy, not the new museum, but I used to love going to the old Goldman Theatre because I went to so many screenings there, and they were comfortable, and you could see, I'm small and I grew up in England. They didn't have great seats.
Yeah.
So you go to theatre and some big guy would be sitting in front of you, blocking your vision,
Yeah.
while people would be munching popcorn around you. It was horrible. So when I discovered the Academy, I would always sit on the aisle so I could lean to the side of some giant sat in front of me. I really loved it. But I will tell you, my best film-going experiences came from two places. One is the New Art Theatre in LA.
Love that one.
Because they would show festivals of Buñuel and Fellini, and they would let me take tickets when I was a student. And then when I was growing up, my mother's French, and I'd go on vacation to Paris, and my great aunt, who was like my grandmother, would give me the equivalent of Time Out, and I'd go through it and mark down all the movies I want to see, and then I'd dash off to all these. They had dozens and dozens of rundown little movie theaters, and I watched everything.
Yeah.
And I'd come home on the last metro. No, nothing has equaled that experience for me.
Absolutely. Have you ever fired up the projector in the Fellino Theater here at Chapman to watch a movie of your choice?
No, but I've been dreaming of doing it, and I promised our retiring president, Daniele Struppa, that I was going to do this for one of my favorite ever films, which is an Italian film called The Leopard, because it's a film only to be seen on a big screen.
Yeah.
And I think, if I turn 70 in a few years' time, I'll invite all my. By the way, the idea of saying 70 is insane,
Yeah.
but I would love it. I love it. I'm also scared to watch it again because there are films that impact you so much and have such an overwhelming emotional effect. You want to treasure that and not be let down by it.
I promised I'd ask a question about the roundtables, which I love, especially the 2016 directors one with Tarantino and Inarritu and Danny Boyle, etc. What are the pros and cons of having 5 to 6 people interact and talk about their craft as a group as opposed to a one-on-one interview?
Well, I'll tell you the cons.
Yeah.
The cons is each person only gets a limited time to speak.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating. And the goal with the roundtables was to have 4 or 5 people. The problem is that when we began them, you're always afraid they'd cancel or drop out. And as they went forward, they never did. And so we ended up with 6, which is too many. And then when I was working with Matt Bellamy and I wanted to raise his profile, I'd bring him in to moderate them with me, which was kind of funny because I'd sit on 2 thick cushions because he's so much taller than I am.
But you have presence, as he said.
Did he? That's nice.
Yeah.
The pure disadvantage in terms of doing them is the limited time.
Yeah.
The advantage is you're really getting them speaking in a different way. They have to be honest with each other. They communicate on a different level, and they're not just tub thumping their movie.
Yeah.
They're really talking about
true.
the craft and the work. Now, I will tell you a couple of things that might hopefully interest you about them. The first one is getting them off the ground was extremely difficult. And it is with any major thing, like doing the master classes here, launching a career center. I've gone into every big thing with a sense of where I wanted to be in 5 years. And part of that is knowing that it must begin. It's not going to begin on the level where it will be in 5 years. But if you begin with too low quality, you can't build from it. So the very first one, I remember we had Nicole Kidman, Forrest Whitaker, Edward Norton, and they were very, very highly respected without being superstars. Nicole Kidman became one. Because I knew that the next year, if I say to George Clooney, this is who I have, they respect that. So launching with quality is extremely important. Launching with a plan. I've had many students who come, they want to create a film festival. Who's going to run this when you leave next year? I don't want to do anything without some vision of where it's going to be and the steps to get there. So the launch was very difficult because now you've got to get several people in one room at one time. And always the problem was coordinating. We would put together blocks. We've got 3 brilliant actors who can do 10 a.m. till 12, 3 who can do 12 till 2, but they can't shift. They're flying in or out on planes. We've lost some amazing people. And then you stick your pin in, so I'm going to go with this one. And then each one, people would often clam up when the camera started rolling. I'd always try to say, let's think of this as a dinner table conversation. Feel free to interrupt. Oh yeah, I'm not going to have any problem. Moment, they call action. They're intimidated. Or you mentioned Ridley Scott. really spoken a monologue for 12 minutes.
Yeah.
The directors were livid. I could not, so I put my hand on his arm next to me. Didn't stop.
Yeah.
I think in the edited version it was cut out. Or you'll get the opposite. Ang Lee was one of my favorite directors who speaks 2 sentences at a time, and that's it.
Yeah. He's a quiet guy. A lot of people who are going to be applying to Chapman probably don't know much about Orange. How do you like living in Orange as opposed to LA? And do you go back a lot, or do you pretty much just try to stay down here?
I have 2 places.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The previous dean, who, let me pay tribute to him, he built this school from nothing. He gave me a very good piece of advice. He said, don't live more than 5 minutes from campus.
Yeah.
So when I negotiated my contract, I said, give me a place to live or pay the rent, which they do. So I have a little cottage and I'm here at least 5 days a week.
Okay.
So I'm here a lot, but I also need, I said this to Joe Rosenberg, who runs our career center, there's a ticking clock on our value from the moment we leave Hollywood.
Yeah.
We constantly have to be renewing these contacts to help our students. So usually I'll stack meetings on a Friday with people in the industry.
Donors, probably.
Donors are here.
Okay.
So that's many evenings. And if it's someone I really need to meet, I will change my schedule and go there.
Yeah, I think most Chapman students know what it's like to do the drive from Orange to LA on the 5 North. What do you listen to? Are you a music fan? Because you said you don't listen to entertainment interviews, probably because it's...
I often listen to the BBC World Service.
Yeah.
I really, they're still the most neutral news service when there are very few that are.
Yeah.
Sometimes I listen to these funny shows on NPR like Wait, Don't Tell Me. I've got to start using that time to listen to podcasts.
Right. What are the most underrated and overlooked British films?
There's an extraordinary British film made by Nicholas Roeg called Walkabout. It's about a young Australian girl, or maybe British, who gets lost in the Australian wilderness and meets an Aboriginal man.
Yeah.
And it's about their relationship. And Roeg made a few films, but he made a couple that were just extraordinary classics. And the other one he made, which is really brilliant, I think it's one of the best films I've ever seen, is Don't Look Now.
Oh, yeah.
With Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland. And
I'll end with a listener question. I posted on social media.
Wow.
I didn't post that I'm interviewing you. I just said I'm interviewing the dean of one of the top film schools. And I chose the best question. This comes from Jose. How have you addressed the issue of financial accessibility, understanding that students come from all different backgrounds and that filmmaking can be really expensive? What measures have you taken to level the playing field among students of different incomes?
This is a great question. Yeah. I do not come from wealth. I was very lucky that when I went to university in England, it was free. And then I won a scholarship to go to film school.
Yeah.
I've never forgotten that. What led me into education, I hope Jose will register this, is that when I was at the Hollywood Reporter, I created a mentorship program for teenage girls in South Central LA. Yeah. And having an extremely low income was a criterion for getting in. You couldn't get in if you didn't have a very, very low income. And then I started raising scholarship money for them to go to university, which I still do.
Yeah.
This matters to me beyond anything, because I think the entire future of our country is dependent on fixing this problem. If we don't create parity in education, then we're not a society with equal opportunity.
Yeah.
And we're going to create a class system like we had in England, and this will kill the America that we believe in. And it's happening. And I'm horrified by the expense of education. Yeah. So there are 2 separate things here. There's the graduate program and there's the undergraduate. The graduate program, we changed it from 3 years to 2 years, and we crammed 3 years into 2. 3 years is better, but it's making the tuition 2/3 of what it was. And I honestly say to students, don't come here, don't pay for it unless you really know how you want to use that. I say to undergrads, take a couple of years to work before you do this. Because I believe in education, but in a film school, you want it to lead to a career. And I'm very worried about this. And I actually, literally, this morning, bumped into the head of admissions for the university and I said, we must have a smaller graduate program, because I don't want to be bringing people here who are not going to come here and find that it leads them to a career. And as the industry is retrenching, that's getting more. So all we could do was bring the cost down, and we will eventually make it a smaller program. The undergraduate program is more complicated because I really believe everybody should have at least an undergraduate degree.
Yeah.
And I believe it's very good here. But I'm also troubled by the expense. The university actually gives a lot of financial aid.
Yeah.
But I also say to students, you've got to weigh up where you go and weigh up how much aid you're getting. Is it worth it? I don't like to see students borrowing a ton of money. And one of my favorite alumni, who used to be my assistant's assistant, came here, went and did a master's degree in Paris, and now has to pay back this insane amount of student debt. So I want people to think about that. And I don't have any power to control financial aid. The university is on a major mission to build the endowment so that we can start giving more financial aid. We've done things internally. I've capped how much money students can spend, which got some negative reaction, because I don't want rich kids saying, well, I'm going to buy this and get this, and creating a real disparity. So we do a lot. We say, this is your budget limit. You can't go with it. Some students will cheat. But there's a culture of this is what we can spend. And we give the students half of the maximum they're allowed.
Also, so, it's like, how much do you need to make a 15-minute movie?
You don't. You can make it with great imagination. But we already give undergrads $12,000, plus free equipment, free stages, free lights, editing, everything. So you can go on GoFundMe and raise the rest. Yeah. So I'm so worried about this. Not just about us, and I've done what I can do, and I'm raising more money to give more money for production, but just this insane cost of education, because it's wrong. It's morally wrong.
Yeah. I'll say as an undergrad, I did it in 3 years because I did 6 classes a semester. Wow. And then I also did some classes at a community college and then transferred the credits, which is, I think, one way to
to lower costs.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's crazy that people have to think like this. And if you are involved with kids from really underprivileged backgrounds, which I am, now we created a Dodge, a mentorship program just for kids from underserved areas. Mm-hmm. We bring 20 of them here every year and pair them with our students to try and help them learn what they need to learn to access university. Yeah. But you're not told, you're not given the information.
Yeah. I hope this has been useful to some of the people listening, whether they're...
And please tell them they can always reach out to me. It's sgalloway@chapman.edu.
Absolutely. You said that on the town. Kudos to you. You allowed me in here to interview you, and you didn't tell me you can't ask this or can't ask that. There was no pre-interview.
Well, I'm a journalist.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like people telling me, ask this. And I've always said, you can always tell your client how to answer something, but you can't tell a journalist not to ask questions.
Exactly.
But you ask really excellent questions.
Thank you, Dean Galloway.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too for doing all the hard work.
And that does it for today's episode of the Cinema Flow podcast. I want to thank my guest, Stephen Galloway, as well as the director for this episode, Kareem El-Khouli, our technical supervisor, Liam Harrington, and I want to thank you. We will be back next week.